Our breakfast focus this morning is on this emergency debate that's been held in Parliament this afternoon on the scandal over contaminated blood. Imagine if you needed blood to make you feel better, get better, and that blood actually ended up killing you. Well, you'll be hearing from Jason. That's exactly what happened to his dad, Jason Evans. We'll be hearing from him after 7 o'clock here on Breakfast with Trish. They're talking about a sort of Hillsborough style inquiry into how the NHS got it so wrong. So there's a big meeting in Parliament this afternoon. We'll be looking ahead to that.
BBC Coventry and Warwickshire.
Good morning to you. It's Breakfast with Trish, available on FM, online and on DAB. It's 7 o'clock.
I'm Martin Winch. A Coventry man whose father died after being infected with HIV through treatment is supporting calls for a Hillsborough-style inquiry into the contaminated blood scandal. More than 2,000 people, mostly haemophiliacs, suffered a similar fate. The victims were infected over 25 years ago in what's been called the worst treatment disaster in the history of the NHS. Jason Evans was 4 when he lost his father. He says this is as much a personal crusade as it is a search for justice.
It started out for me as a very personal cause, and still is, because my father was affected and came to die as a result of this. I think over time it's certainly become more than that.
8 minutes past 7 now. An emergency debate is being held in Parliament this afternoon on the scandal over contaminated blood. There are increasing calls for a public inquiry into how haemophiliacs and others were infected with hepatitis C and HIV from imported blood products during the 1970s and the 1980s. The Labour MP Diana Johnson told the Commons there was a case for the police to be brought in.
These recent developments have been extremely significant. The letter of the 7th of July raises the prospect that if the matter of a public inquiry were to be put to a vote in this House, it would command the support of the majority of members of Parliament. For all the reasons I have outlined, I believe that we now need an emergency debate, and for the government to do the right thing and secure justice for those affected in this scandal, including justice for the 2,400 people who have already died.
Labour MP Diana Johnson speaking there, ending on that figure, 2,400 lives lost to tainted blood, including my next guests, Jason Evans' father. Jason Evans is from Coventry. Good morning, Jason.
Yeah, good morning again, Trish. Good morning.
Yeah, we spoke many a time about this contaminated blood scandal. Do you think there is now a case for the police to be brought in?
I mean, I think it's always been there. I think the difference now is that we've got the momentum, and we've now finally got the attention of the majority of Parliament who are supporting this. And yeah, it's a day full of hope and anticipation from the community, that's for sure. Just
remind us what actually happened in your dad's case.
So he was born with a condition called haemophilia, which prevents the blood from clotting properly sometimes. And for that, like many others, he began to use a new treatment that came on the market called Factor 8. It came to come to light that these products were infected with hepatitis C and HIV, for the reason that, unlike a normal blood donation, these products were imported from America, and they were made by mixing the donations of up to 60,000 donors who were often paid and from prisons and high-risk areas. And so you only need one infected donor to contaminate the entire batch, and virtually an entire generation of people with haemophilia, thousands of people, will have been wiped out by this scandal.
It's incredible. And you were only 4 years old when your dad passed away. Very difficult for your family, Jason.
Yeah, of course. And it was a slow learning curve for me. At a certain point, I knew that my dad had died from AIDS, and it took me a long time to understand what that was and the stigma and everything else that's attached to it. And, all these years on, I'm 27 now, and I mean, we're at this point now where after kind of a year or two of research and lawyers and everything else that's gone along with it, I feel like we could be close to the beginning of the end.
You found evidence in the National Archives that doctors in the NHS knew they were giving patients contaminated blood. That's just astonishing, isn't it? If that turns out to be true.
Well, it even gets worse than that. I mean, the evidence that I supplied to the Daily Mail, which was on their front page last Tuesday, showed that Department of Health officials were actually urging doctors to infect patients with hepatitis C so that they could then use the samples and specimens from the haemophiliacs to develop a new blood test for hepatitis C for the general population. And, you know, it's a horrific case, really, of human guinea pigs, it looks like. And so, at least, there needs to be, you know, a full public inquiry into this now with the statutory powers to compel witnesses under oath to release the documents and to get to the bottom of this. The amount of lives lost from this is more than all other public disasters within the last 30 years combined in this country, and how it hasn't happened so far is unbelievable, really.
But Jason, you know, there might be an argument saying, well, listen, it was an awful mistake and an ill thought out one. Your dad's gone now. Shouldn't you kind of let it go, so to speak?
I mean, I've personally not met anyone that said that. I think it would be a bit of a crazy opinion to have. We're talking about 2,500 people who have died, 2,500 more who are still surviving. And, you know, we can't let this go. We've got ministers, former ministers, saying this has been a cover-up. We've got Andy Burnham, former health secretary, saying this is criminal what's happened. Personally, I don't think criminals should be allowed to escape justice.
And Jason, what do you want? Do you want people brought to account in terms of being put in prison, or do you want compensation money-wise? What's the end result for you, Jason?
I think what we all want is for people to be brought to account and to get the answers, to have, you know, we saw with Hillsborough, and I've met some of the Hillsborough families. And, you know, there's three things we all want, which is truth, justice, and accountability. And it's those same things. We want the truth put on record. I am in touch with a number of other people, 70 now actually, who have lost a parent to this. And we all say virtually the same thing, that we believe the deaths of our fathers are recorded in history falsely. And we want it put on the record that this wasn't a mistake, it wasn't an accident. The evidence is clear on that now, and this could have been avoided.
Jason Evans, thank you very much indeed. Thanks very much for talking to us. And of course, Phil Upton here on BBC Coventry and Warwickshire will bring you the very latest of that emergency debate being held in Parliament this afternoon on the scandal over contaminated blood. It's 7:15 here on BBC Coventry and Warwickshire.